Mortal Kombat has been finding new ways to brutalize for over 30 years. The franchise built its entire identity on the question of how much the human body could be taken apart on screen before someone filed a lawsuit. And the answer, it turns out, is considerably more than anyone expected. Today, we're breaking down the most brutal, most iconic, and most disturbingly creative deaths the franchise has ever produced, starting with the most well-known one, Spine Rip from Sub-Zero's Spine Rip debuted in the original Mortal Kombat arcade in September 1992 and is widely recognized as the fatality that put the franchise on the radar of the United States Congress. The animation is laughably simple by modern standards. Sub-Zero grabs the opponent by the neck, yanks upward, and tears out the full spine and skull in one fluid motion. No slow-motion camera angles, no realistic physics, just pixelated chunks of digitized gore that somehow caused more real-world panic than anything the franchise has produced since. The move's input was deliberately easy to execute, meaning players discovered it organically during casual play rather than through guides. You'd be playing your third round against a friend, accidentally hit the right combo, and suddenly there's a spine dangling from Sub-Zero's hand while your opponent's headless body collapses in a pile of red pixels. Co-creator Ed Boon has cited Spine Rip as his personal favorite fatality from the first game and acknowledged it as the move most responsible for congressional hearings targeting video game violence in the early 1990s. Politicians literally used this as Exhibit A for corrupting children, despite the victim looking like a poorly scanned photo of someone in a karate gi. The ESRB rating system exists today largely because of this move. The fatality evolved across sequels, returning in Mortal Kombat 2011 as an unlockable and getting rebranded as Head Rip in Mortal Kombat X with photorealistic spinal fluid. In Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, it was removed entirely to secure a teen rating, one of the only times the franchise walked back its own signature move. But if you think ripping out a spine caused problems, wait until you hear about the sound effect that accidentally launched an entire developer's career. Toasty. Toasty is not a fatality. It is a man's face appearing in the corner of your screen after you've just ripped someone's spine out, yelling one word at maximum volume, and then disappearing. And somehow, this became one of gaming's most beloved traditions. The man is Dan Forden. Born September 28, 1963, he served as the primary sound programmer and composer for Mortal Kombat across multiple generations. In 1993, during the development of Mortal Kombat 2, he recorded himself shouting "Toasty" in a single take. The audio file was nearly cut from the game entirely due to cartridge memory limitations, which in 1993 was a legitimate concern because you had about as much storage space as a modern email attachment. Forden allegedly hid the file in an unused memory sector and revealed it as a surprise to the rest of the development team, who decided to keep it as an Easter egg, and it gets weirder. In certain game versions, if you click on Forden's image during the Toasty pop-up, it plays "Right said Freds, I'm too sexy," a gag layered inside a gag. Nobody asked for this, it simply existed. The exclamation survived nearly 30 years. In Mortal Kombat 1, released in 2023, players can still activate a Toasty modifier in Invasion mode at Rampart Mesa and within Towers of Time, triggering the classic sound effect when landing fatalities. One memory sector away from never existing, and it became a franchise-defining element. When Dan Forden departed NetherRealm Studios in 2023, gaming outlets reported the news as potentially signaling the end of Toasty in future titles. They treated the exit of a sound designer as franchise-level breaking news. A single syllable had more cultural staying power than entire game mechanics. But if you think a disembodied head yelling at you is absurd, wait until you see what Jax does with his bare hands. Head clap. Jax has no magic, no ice powers, no teleportation, no soul-sucking abilities, just two cybernetic arms and an absolutely unhinged understanding of physics, which is what makes his head clap fatality so perfectly absurd. It's not mystical, not supernatural, it's just a man deciding that the best use of enhanced grip strength is to treat someone's skull like a watermelon at a county fair. The move debuted in Mortal Kombat 2 in 1993, and the input was brilliant in its sadism. Hold low punch, tap forward 3 times, then release. A charge release mechanic that separated players who could execute under pressure from players who just mashed buttons in excitement. The animation is exactly what it sounds like. Jax seizes the opponent's head between his palms and drives his hands together. The skull doesn't crack, it detonates. A shower of bone and brain matter while the body stands there for a second, knees buckling in delayed realization, before folding to the ground like a dropped marionette. That beat of headless standing is pure dark comedy, written entirely in gore. This was among the first fatalities to emphasize utilize brute physical force from a non-supernatural character. Sub-Zero had ice magic, Raiden had light, Jax had biceps and bad intentions. Somehow that made it more disturbing. Anyone with arms this strong could theoretically do this. You just needed to want it badly enough. The head clap has appeared in nearly every mainline title since 1993. By Mortal Kombat 11, the animation returned sharper and more brutal than ever, the impact finally selling the weight of those cybernetic arms in a way older sprite work simply couldn't manage. Undignified doesn't even cover it. At least most fatalities let you fall down immediately. This one makes you stand there like an idiot first. Make a wish. Noob Cybots, make a wish. Fatality from Mortal Kombat 9 is disturbing for exactly the wrong reason. Every other fatality in the franchise shows you everything. Spines get ripped out, organs get splattered across the screen, blood goes everywhere, but Make a Wish shows you absolutely nothing, and that's what makes it worse. The move starts simple enough. Noob drives his hand into the opponent's chest, but instead of tearing anything out, living darkness starts consuming them. The victim doesn't explode, they don't bleed, they just implode into shadow particles while Noob performs a slow, deliberate wishing gesture, like he's making a birthday wish over someone's corpse. The whole thing feels ceremonial rather than frantic, clinical even. This was among the first fatalities in the franchise to incorporate the X-ray camera effect to highlight skeletal damage during execution. You get that brief surgical glimpse of internal destruction layered beneath the supernatural imagery. Then it's gone. The victim just disappears into darkness. The developers reportedly programmed over 200 individual particle effects to simulate the appearance of the victim being consumed by living darkness rather than simply fading out. That's an enormous technical investment for a fatality designed to show as little as possible. Most fatalities in MK9 are about maximum visible gore. Make a Wish is about restraint. Your imagination fills in what the animation withholds, which arguably makes it more unsettling than watching someone get torn in half. The move ties directly to Noob Saibot's lore, as a former Lin Kuei assassin transformed into a wraith after betrayal and death. The wish gesture isn't random. It reads as Noob reclaiming something taken from it. Something about existence, maybe. Or revenge. The victim isn't just killed, they're unmade. Erased from reality by someone who was already erased once himself. But if you think watching someone disappear into shadow is disturbing, wait until you see what happens when someone turns their own death into a social media opportunity. Selfie. Mortal Kombat has featured decapitations, eviscerations, and spine removals for 3 decades. But in 2015, it finally did something truly shocking. It made someone stop mid-fight to check their phone. Cassie Cage's selfie fatality is exactly what it sounds like. She pulls out a smartphone, frames the opponent in the background like they're a tourist attraction, kicks them hard enough to bisect them vertically, and photographs the exact moment their torso separates. Then presumably posts it to Instagram with a fire emoji. This was the first fatality in franchise history to use contemporary consumer technology as the primary execution prop. Not a sword, not supernatural powers, just a phone. The tonal whiplash is deliberate. You lose the fight, you get split in half, and your death immediately becomes someone's content. Maximum humiliation. NetherRealm had to build entirely new animation systems to make this work. Standard dismemberment physics didn't accommodate a handheld prop mid-sequence, so they developed a screen reflection system that displays the opponent's terrified expression in the phone's display during the killing blow. The victim watches themselves die in real time through a camera lens. The move generated external controversy for allegedly glamorizing selfie culture at a time when dangerous selfie incidents were receiving widespread media attention. Developers stated the concept was conceived years before such incidents became a mainstream news topic. But that didn't stop the think pieces. Here's the thing though, the selfie fatality isn't just a gimmick. It's a perfect extension of the Cage family's defining trait across multiple game generations. Lethal competence wrapped in insufferable showmanship. Johnny Cage signed autographs after killing people. Cassie takes selfies. Same energy, different decade. The joke is delivered with the timing of a professional comedian, and the punchline is your corpse. But if you think stopping to take a photo mid-execution is disrespectful, wait until you see what Kung Lao does with a hat. Face grind. Kung Lao throws a hat at people. That's his thing. But in Mortal Kombat X, he found a way to make it so much worse than anyone thought possible. Face grind is exactly what it sounds like, and somehow that's still worse than you're picturing. Kung Lao plants his razor-edged hat on the ground so it spins in place. Then he grabs the opponent, shoves their face directly into the blade, and just holds them there while the hat does what a spinning razor hat does. No drama, no build-up, just a man using his opponent's skull as a grinding surface. And here's where it gets technical. The fatality works because of what it doesn't do. There's no elaborate telekinetic setup, no slow theatrical ascent. It's immediate and mechanical, which somehow makes it it worse. The hat spins, the face goes in. Kung Lao is present for the entire thing, which means he made a choice to stand there and hold someone in place while their face ceased to be a face, which tells you something about Kung Lao as a person. Every hat throw in his moveset is precise, controlled, deliberate. He's not a brawler who gets lucky. He's a technician who has spent his entire life mastering what a spinning disc of sharpened metal can do to a human body, and at some point he decided the logical conclusion of that mastery was to use an opponent's own face as a demonstration, like a chef testing a knife on a cutting board, except the cutting board is a man, and the man had feelings about this. The straightforwardness of it is what makes it land. Most fatalities in Mortal Kombat X are elaborate spectacles with multiple moving parts. Face grind is 3 steps. Hat down, grab opponent, apply face to hat. Done. In a game built around excess, the simplicity reads as confidence. Kung Lao doesn't need a 10-second sequence to make his point. He made his point in about 4 seconds, and the point was the hat. At least Kung Lao gives you a show, unlike the next one where you don't even get to see it coming. D'Vorah. D'Vorah is not a character who does things halfway. She is, at her core, a walking insect colony wearing a person suit, and every single thing she does reflects that in the most unsettling way possible. Her fatality in Mortal Kombat X, called New Species, is one of the most infamous finishing moves in the franchise's history, and that's saying something for a series that once made a guy pull someone's spine out through their throat like he was uncorking a wine bottle. Here's what happens. D'Vorah restrains her opponent, forces her ovipositor into their skull, and deposits eggs directly into their brain. The eggs hatch, baby insects eat their way out. The opponent's head, and then most of their body, essentially becomes a hatchery. It is exactly as bad as it sounds. What makes it land harder than most fatalities isn't just the concept, it's the execution. The animation team reportedly built a custom fluid physics system specifically for this move, logging over 1,200 hours just to get the biological details right. The larvae movement, the way the body reacts, all of it was painstakingly crafted to look as real as physically possible. They did not have to do that. They chose to. The lore context makes it worse or better, depending on your tolerance for insect-based horror. D'Vorah is a chitin, which means she isn't being sadistic. She's being practical. For her species, implanting eggs in a host body isn't an act of cruelty. It's reproduction. It's biological necessity, which is, not ideal for the person whose skull she's using as a nursery. Several regions refused to allow the move in its original form. Germany and Japan both required censored versions, which honestly tracks. Some things transcend cultural difference. When the game launched in 2015, the reaction online was immediate. Players who thought they'd seen everything the franchise had to offer sat in silence for a moment and then went to go lie down. The community still talks about it as one of the most effectively disturbing fatalities ever designed, not because it's the goriest, but because it commits fully to its own internal logic. D'Vorah wasn't trying to be horrifying, she was just being herself. That's somehow worse. Blended. Blended belongs to Nitara in Mortal Kombat 1, released in 2023, and it is the fatality that most efficiently represents where the franchise has arrived after 30 years of raising the ceiling on what a finishing move can be. Nitra is a vampire. A blender is an appliance. The connection these two facts produce is one of the most enthusiastically committed pieces of body horror in the franchise's modern era, rendered at a graphical fidelity that would have seemed impossible to the development team that produced the spine rip in 1992. The execution mechanics involve Nitara producing a full-sized industrial blender, inserting the opponent into it, and operating the appliance at its intended setting. MK1's engine renders the blending process with the same commitment it applies to everything else in the Fatality Suite. The physics of what happens when a human body interacts with blender blades at operational speed, the visual results of that interaction, the thoroughness of the outcome. Nitara's expression throughout is serene, which is the character doing character work. The shock factor of Blended is partly the concept. A vampire using a kitchen appliance as a murder weapon is absurd enough that it circles back around to disturbing, and partly the demonstration of how far rendering technology has come since 1992. The spine rip was shocking because no one had seen digital blood at that scale. Blended is shocking because the detail level of what the blender produces is rendered with 30 years of accumulated graphical capability, applied to a concept that the original development team would have found genuinely impossible to execute. The franchise has always been about what the available technology would allow. In 2023, the technology allows a great deal. The victim's plight in Blended is the most thoroughgoing on this list in terms of physical outcome. The blending process is not partial. Nitara does not stop the blender early. What goes in is a fully rendered Mortal Mortal Kombat fighter with a complete moveset, a storyline, and probably some emotional arc across the game's narrative. What the blender produces is not those things. The franchise has come a long way since Kano pulled out a spine in 1992. The destination, as it turns out, was a vampire, a blender, and 30 years of practice. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.